Was I meant to? And then it came. Not a thought, not a hunch, a voice. Audible, thunderous, precise. Are you done yet? In 3 days, you will be released. Go to Mexico in 3 days. I froze. My lungs forgot to breathe. My palms turned slick with sweat. Was this divine command or final madness? And yet, beneath the terror, there was no chaos, only compulsion, not fear-driven, destiny-driven. It was as if heaven had handed me a key to a door I was forbidden to understand. I didn't know why, I didn't know how, but something ancient within whispered, "Do you have pain?" Before I could set foot on the path that now stretched before me, I knew I had to meet him, the man whose voice had shattered darkness and sent demons fleeing, the voice that roared like a lion through a phone line and cracked open the gates of my soul. But when we finally met in person, he was nothing like I had imagined. Not towering, not thunderous, not cloaked in robes or crowned in glory. No, he was small, almost wiry, like someone time had misplaced in the 1970s and sent back draped in bell-bottoms and a second-hand windbreaker. By worldly standards, there was nothing remarkable about him. And yet, his spirit spoke louder than any appearance ever could. He carried the weight I had heard in his voice that night, not a burden, but a presence. The kind of gravity you feel, not see. A quiet authority that spoke of something ancient and holy having taken up residence in his bones. I thanked him for the prayer, for the power, for stepping into the abyss when no one else would. Then I told him what I sensed, that God was calling me to Mexico. He didn't ask for a plan. He didn't request proof. He didn't even blink. "Let's go," he said, as if destiny were as natural as breakfast. The next morning, we climbed into his rattling old car, a relic that sounded like it had driven to the edge of the world and back, and headed south. The plan was simple: walk across the border, obey whatever God asked, and return before sundown. But as Tijuana neared, something inside me shifted. The air thickened. A pressure built in my chest like a storm behind my ribs. My thoughts turned jagged. My breath shortened. Fear began to hiss like a serpent in the back of my mind. I turned to him and asked, with the tremble of a man who wants to believe, "What do you normally do when God tells you to go somewhere?" He smiled, soft and steady, like he'd heard the question 1,000 times from men far braver than me. "Simple. You love the people you meet along the way," he said. I hesitated. "What if they don't speak your language?" He paused for the first time, chuckled under his breath, and said, "Good point." Then casually, he pulled out his phone, an old translation app, barely hanging on to relevance. He typed in a phrase. The screen blinked, and a robotic voice spoke through the static. "Tienes dolor? Do you have pain?" That was it. One phrase, one mission, one act of obedience. We parked the car, stepped into the crowd, crossed the threshold into a dreamscape, gritty, raw, and alive. Armed with nothing but a borrowed phrase and the fire of the Holy Spirit, we walked across the border, into the unknown. The sword had become the word. The contrast struck like a blade. Crossing into Mexico wasn't a change in geography. It was a rift in reality, a threshold. One step beyond the border, and it felt as though I had passed through a veil, into a parallel world stitched together with sorrow, dust, and the breath of the dying. On the U.S. side, the air had been crisp, the streets orderly, the lines clean and precise. But the moment I crossed over, order dissolved into chaos. The streets pulsed with bodies, not merely the poor, but the perishing. They didn't walk so much as crawl. Some dragged what remained of their limbs through gutters, skin lost to rot, infection carving them open like slow fire. Their wounds cried out, bandaged in dirt, resignation, and the kind of silence that follows abandonment. This wasn't a city. It was a field of the dead. And I, a man still bleeding on the inside, had been sent there. I don't know what compelled me to approach him. Obedience? Madness? Mercy? But there he was, slumped against a crumbling wall, legs grotesquely swollen, leaking infection through foul strips of cloth that barely clung to his flesh. The stench was overwhelming, and yet the moment was holy. I knelt, knees to concrete, spirit trembling. My heart pounded like a war drum as I forced the words from my throat, fragile in the weight of the moment, Tienes dolor? Do you have pain? He looked up at me, not with fear, not with suspicion, but with a serenity I could not explain. There was peace in his eyes, peace in the middle of hell, and he nodded. I laid my hand on him and prayed. I didn't know if the words carried weight. I didn't know if healing would come. I didn't even know whether I was speaking from faith or from raw, aching desperation. But I prayed, and then I turned to leave. A part of me felt foolish, empty, powerless, until I looked back, and his face was changed. There was no miraculous regeneration of flesh, no divine reversal of decay, but something greater had occurred. His face had become a canvas of hope, glowing faintly, defiantly, like a candle refusing to be extinguished by the wind. And in that moment, louder than any sermon, stronger than any vision, a truth pierced me. The sword had become the word, and the word had become flesh in me, music,